Welcome, Whole Lifers, to the Health Over Everything podcast. I'm Stephen Z.
And I am SoCal Gula. Today we have a special guest, our friend from X, Adam. How you doing this morning, Adam?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Great. Today is St. Patty's Day, so all the Irish people will say happy St. Patty's Day to you. But you have a project called the Blind Luck Project, and you also are known as the Sasquatch, right? You're this big old Sasquatch.
That's correct. Yeah. I have the Blind Life Project, a website I run about finance, but also kind of mental health and retirement lifestyle. And then the Sasquatch, because I'm a big strong guy, but I'm not particularly fast moving, so it's kind of like a Sasquatch.
Yeah, so we'll get into that as well, like your big strongness and your powerlifting journey as well, like some of that. But first, we would talk about you do have a what is it? A degenerative eye. It was a disease, right?
Correct. Yeah, I have a genetic condition. It's known as Usher syndrome. It's a subset of retinitis pigmentosa, which some people may be familiar with. It's actually a leading cause of blindness in young people, people under like 30, let's say. And basically, what happens is your retina just slowly starts dying. It's kind of like oxygen starvation. The blood vessels aren't fully formed in the retina, and over time, the retina, ages quicker than it should, and it dies from the outside in. So you lose night vision first. That's kind of your rods. And then you lose peripheral vision, things you need to, catch a baseball or see the, car out of the corner of your eye in a parking lot, stuff like that. And slowly it does progress into your central vision. And you eventually do lose all eyesight, usually a little bit later in life, but it's different for every person. Like some people go blind quite young and other people do pretty well into their more extended years.
Wow. And how old are you now? And how old were you when you first started noticing your eyesight going away?
Yeah, so I'm 36 now. And we started noticing it in my brother first, actually. It's genetic, so it runs in the family. It's a recessive trait, so my parents and grandparents don't have it, but my brother does. And we started noticing he had trouble seeing at night, especially in new areas where he'd never been before, so he has to need his eyes a little bit more. Now it's in middle school. And the parents are kind of like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Taking him to eye doctors, they couldn't quite figure it out. And middle school is when they kind of figured it out. We went to some specialist, and then at first we didn't think much about it. We're just kids, like, "Oh, is he fine? We're playing baseball." Like, "What are you talking about? We're gonna go blind. We'll be fine." So we kind of went to the denial phase, and a lot of people do that when they're diagnosed with something they can't control. It's like, "Oh, well, it doesn't affect me. I'll be fine. Like if I just pretend it doesn't exist, it'll go away, right?"
Yeah.
And then in high school, I definitely started noticing it myself. The night blindness started setting in. In college, I noticed peripheral vision becoming an issue. I was running into things, tripping over, wet floor signs in stores, or bumping into people, where I shouldn't, stuff like that. And then on age 26, I had to give up driving, and that was a big wake up call for me. Like my eyes got to the point where it's like I wasn't safe for me to drive anymore. I was like, man, I'm only 26. Like this is something you do to like 70-year-olds. You're like, "Hey, grandpa, I got to take the keys away. You're just not cutting it anymore." And here I am, 26. I got a job. I got a wife. I'm trying to figure life out, and you're going to take my car away. Like that's tough in America. Your car's your freedom.
Yeah.
So that's where my focus really shifted. Like, oh man, I gotta figure out how to be financially secure. I need to be as healthy as possible because my eyesight. There's some theories that if you have good blood oxygen levels and stuff, that it might help extend what usable vision you have. So I'm trying to be really serious about fitness and all that. Try to extend whatever usable vision I do still have for as long as possible.
Nice.
So people will see you right now in this video or whatever, and they'll just be like, "Oh, they can't even tell that you're blind," and they'll probably have a lot of questions like, "Well, how are you blind? How are you doing this?" Like, I'm probably sure you get a lot of that because I know you're on X, text platform.
Yeah, definitely. I actually have an FAQ page or frequently asked questions page on my website to answer some of these questions, but I'll kind of go over the high level stuff here. The first thing is like a lot of blind people don't look blind. They still have their eyeballs. 9 out of 10 blind people still have some vision.
Yeah.
Maybe light perception. Maybe like me, I can read out one eye still. My left eye I cannot. My right eye I have about 2 degrees field of view left. So most people have 180. I can see like looking through a drinking straw. If I look at a page, I can see about 2 letters at a time. So, reading, pretty structured, left to right, top to bottom. I can scan and figure it out. It slows me down, but
Yeah.
I'm not 100% blind. Like most people who are legally blind, they do still have some vision. Now, the concern is as I get older, my eyes are still getting worse. Just because I'm legally blind today doesn't mean it stopped. So, I've been really focused on trying to set my life up to, support me for when I get older and my eyes do continue to get worse, that I have the systems in place to live the life I want to live. I mean, that's been the challenge is, when you stop driving, you got to figure that out. When you're having trouble reading, you got to figure that out. There's always kind of the next thing you got to figure out. But you have two choices. You either learn tools and adapt, or you let your world shrink. And a lot of older people will do this. They become physically unable to do what they used to be able to do. And instead of asking for help or trying to learn a new skill, they let their world shrink. And that's the last thing you want to do. So that's something I've been really involved with here in the blind community. I volunteer a lot, trying to, encourage people to take those hard steps they need to and do the work to, keep living the life they want to live. It's very important.
Do you use like one of those little blind sticks that they use walking around?
Yep. I use a white cane. If I'm in an area I'm familiar with, sometimes I can get around without it, but I typically bring it with me because, as you pointed out earlier, I don't really look blind. So, what happens when I run over someone's kid at the mall and, the mom's like, what did you just do? You just ran my kid over. Or, if I'm at a crosswalk, maybe, the car doesn't realize I can't see them. So it's important for me to communicate to other people that I may not be able to see them. And awkward things happen. Like I was at a Seattle Seahawks game. This was kind of as I was going blind, so before I started using the cane. And I was with some coworkers, and I was embarrassed at the time. I don't want to admit that I was going blind. Like it's kind of hard to accept yourself, let alone share with other people. So I needed to use the restrooms like fourth quarter. Had a few beers or whatever. So I go down and I follow someone that looked like a guy into the restroom. And everyone's wearing jerseys, and it turned out to be a female. Like, oh snap! Like this is a female restroom. Okay, I'll turn around. Go to the right one. No big deal, right? And then I come out of the male's room. I'm probably surrounded by security. There's like 6 big dudes. And fourth quarter, I figure I'm sorry, some drunk dude being a peeping Tom. And I get it. And I'm like, hey, look, I can't see well. Like it's an honest mistake, but I don't have my cane with me or anything. They don't know. There's not like a special ID for blind people. Like I can't just like whip out my special card or something.
Oh yeah.
So they kicked me out of the stadium. They're like, yeah, dude, you're a drunk asshole. Get out of here, which I support. Like, you don't want people doing stuff like that. But part of using a white cane or a seeing eye dog or something is communicating to the people around you that maybe you aren't seeing things or, whatever. It helps put things into context. So I definitely use the white cane anytime I go out.
Yeah, definitely. People definitely are visual, so they definitely see that and they're like, "Oh, well, he's blind. Will be a little easier."
Yeah, it's kind of get out of jail free card. Like you run into someone or knock something over, and it's like, oh, oops, the blind guy did it. Like honest mistake.
You have a disability.
This drunk asshole.
Yeah. I'm not drunk. I have a disability, guys. Fuck.
Yeah.
Give me a break over here.
What about so this is uncurable. And is there any hope of something like, I know Elon's doing the Neuralink, which is the brain. I don't think that has nothing to do with the eyesight, but is there any hope at all for something like that to like come along, like maybe in science, maybe
stem cells or something?
There's some interesting research. But the thing is, they've been saying, over almost, they've been saying they've almost got cured for the last 30 years, right? So it's kind of like, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but they're doing some really interesting things. So the cool thing about eyeballs is they do a lot of research on them for a couple of reasons. A lot of older people lose their vision as they get older through macular degeneration, glaucoma, diabetes-related stuff. So, I mean, there's a need there to do research on vision loss. And the eyeball is kind of the perfect organ to study because there's 2 of them. So they can treat one eye, and they have the control for the study built right into the same body. So it's like a perfect organ to study. It's also easy to administer drugs. It's a fluid-filled organ that's accessible from the exterior of the body. It doesn't require surgery or anything like that. So there's a lot of really cool research being done. One of the coolest studies is a company called Procure, and they're doing a gene editing study for specifically my condition. And I've been following that pretty closely. None of the results are public or anything yet, but I do know that they have a gene-specific targeted study that they're working on. It wouldn't reverse the damage to my eye, but it would correct the gene to prevent further progression of the disease. So
nice.
there's some hope, but again, gene editing's it's pretty new. We don't know a lot about it. Like, what are the side effects? Does it cause cancer in your eyeball? Does it, affect other parts of your body? So it is kind of scary too. Like, they might do this 5-year study and say, oh, this might help you, but you don't have the long-term research. So that also that pulls other questions in, like how much vision do you have left? Are you willing to take the risk? Et cetera. So there's some really promising work out there, but there's, it's not a magic pill either.
Yeah. Anything you would,
yeah. I was going to say, is there anything with like stem cells? Cause I've heard good stuff about like stem cells helping, blind people be able to see again. There's nothing like that with your condition.
There's a bunch of research out there. I don't keep up on all of it. I have seen some stuff with stem cells, but it seems like that's kind of faded. That was like 5 years ago. We were hearing about it, and I haven't heard a lot about it recently. It's really moved to like the gene editing stuff. Okay. There's some stuff with eye transplants that's interesting, and the stem cells would be used to like help connect the optic nerve. But they're a long ways away from that still. I think they're kind of focusing on people with like broken backs first to fix the spinal cord, something a little bit more simple. And then once they can get a cord connected, they'll go to something more complicated like the optic nerve, because there's a lot more connections there. But again, it's not for lack of them not trying. It's been 30 years. They've been doing all these amazing things, but nothing's quite had that magic breakthrough yet.
No.
Yeah, I have a friend that has a daughter that she has glaucoma and she could barely see. She uses a stick and stuff. Like she's only 19 now, but she had it for long periods of time. So I see that as well. And how's your brother doing? Is he who's
yeah? Yeah, so that's the interesting thing about this condition. And I'm sure other conditions are similar, but my brother and I, we have the exact same genetic condition. It's a double recessive. So we know we have the exact same version because my parents don't have symptoms. So for my brother and I to both have symptoms, it has to be the exact same gene. He is 35 years old, still driving, has kids. He is noticing some night blindness issues. He is noticing his field of view is probably down to like 60, but significantly more than me. And that's been interesting because we're only 1 year apart. Mm-hmm. And my vision has progressed so much more than his. So his progression has been more similar to like what a normal case would be. And we've asked the doctors like, hey, why is one person progressing quicker than the other? And the doctors don't know. They're like, these are super rare diseases. It's just, some people are different than others. We don't know why. Like our knowledge of this, genetics and stuff haven't gotten advanced enough to know all the factors, which is kind of humbling because, we like to think we know everything about genetics. We've got it all mapped out and all this. And I mean, the doctors are basically saying, hey, we can kind of point to some of the triggers, but we really don't know how all this works yet. We're still learning.
I wonder who you got it from, like who has the gene, your mom or your dad?
They both had to have it. So they both had a recessive trait of it.
Yeah.
So they had a dominant and a recessive version of the gene. So since they had their dominant version, their vision and stuff was fine. They don't have any symptoms, but they both passed a recessive copy to my brother and I. And since we had both recessive copies, we exhibit the symptoms. So it's both their faults.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So that's probably super common then for both of them to have it, to be able to pass it on to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Is it one of those things that we all have it in our, the genome is crazy. We all have it, but some of them are just really silent, or do some people just don't have it?
It's a mutation. It's like a damaged version of the gene. I believe I saw it in research somewhere. I think it's like 1 in 30,000 people have one version of the bad copy.
Oh, okay.
But then both people have to have it, right? So it's like 1 in 30,000 times 1 in 30,000. Those are your odds to have a kid with it.
Then they leak up.
Exactly. So yeah, it's pretty rare.
So did your brother have it at a younger age than you did?
Well, we both technically had it from birth since it's genetic. But we did notice it in him first. He was having trouble seeing at night, and that's kind of what kicked off the whole process. But for whatever reason, his progression has been slower. So again, we don't know a lot about the condition. It's super rare. You would think the person you see it in first has a worse case of it or whatever, right? But that hasn't been the case. His eyesight's been relatively stable. He has had some effects, like he definitely notices that he's losing his vision. but he's still much more functional than I am at a similar age.
You know what? I'm thinking that makes me think of like if we could get all of our genomes and our DNA like kind of out there now, and so we know what like kind of what genes we're susceptible to. If you could use that in the dating field, so it's like okay, like you have like if your mom and dad had that, and it's like maybe we wouldn't have linked up because now our kids might be going blind because you have this and I have this, but it could be with any kind of thing.
Maybe. I mean, I think of the movie Gattaca. You get like different classes of people based on like their genetic profile and their risk factors. Like, it's a really gray area. Like, let's say you're dating someone, there's like a 20% chance that your kid could be autistic, right? Like, what's the threshold? Like, none of this is guaranteed. It's never 100% chance. It's like my parents, for example, they had a 25% chance of having a kid with my condition. Does that preclude them from dating? Like, where's the line?
Yeah, it would be an individual choice.
Yeah, and then like, do you test the baby before it's born? Like, like, oh, we happen to have this rare condition. Like, are we going to have this kid? Like, there's a lot of really kind of ethical questions we got to start asking ourselves as we learn more about genetics. Like, there's some really cool things we could do, but then it's like, at what point do you let Mother Nature just happen?
Yep, exactly. That's an interesting aspect. I'm pretty sure some people wouldn't want to do anything with it, and some people are like, I want to know everything, and I want my baby to be like this, so whatever. But
yeah, I mean, everyone wants what's best for their kid, right? But which kid do you want? It's a tough question. It's something worth asking though, because I think it's going to become a bigger question in the future as we learn more.
Yes, it is.
Definitely.
And what I love about that, okay, now you're blind and stuff, but what I love about it is that you still push forward. You're still very positive and motivated. And that's what I really like about it. So no matter like, that's a good point with health over everything is that you still, like have a positive outlook. Like you're not using this as a crutch because, we all have some sort of issue. Some people might be obese. Some people might have like diabetes when they're born, like when they're younger or whatever. But this is just your issue, but you're still pushing on. You still use health, and try to help your body out. So, and you're positive about it. That's what I really like about that a good message that you have.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, you have two choices. We either let the world shrink or we just move on.
Yeah. And that's part of your blind luck project, right? Your mission is to teach others how to make their own luck and living life to the fullest, even if they have
100%. Yeah. That was the whole point. It's like, I think online there's a large group of people that they think they got it made and they kind of stand on top of their mountain and they shout victory. And I don't feel like it's very relatable because there's a lot of people who do have their own challenge in life. So I kind of wanted to be a different voice. Like, hey, here's my challenge. Like, it is what it is. But I've learned ways to move past that and be successful. And I think that's an important message. And some of the things I've had to do very differently than maybe someone who was handed everything on a silver platter, right? Yeah. So I think some of the lessons I have are maybe a little bit more relatable and actionable for people who, maybe do have a few obstacles in their life. And to your point, obstacles can come in many forms. I mean, it can be a genetic thing like I had. It can be a personal issue, with relationships in your life, or it could be a personal addiction, or there's so many different things that could be an obstacle in your life. But it's up to you to decide if it's going to be something that limits you.
Yeah. Is there any kind of like tools or anything that you've done specifically to kind of help you stay positive throughout the years?
I think maybe not specifically, but just things I've experienced in life. I worked at a mental institute when I was in college. People who are clinically insane. And that was kind of when, in a time in my life, my eyes were starting to change more quickly. So I was maybe feeling a little down, like, oh man, I just stopped driving. Like, well, I guess I stopped driving a little bit later, but I was struggling driving, so I knew that was coming, and that kind of starts getting in your head a little bit. Mm-hmm. But going to work and seeing people who are clinically insane, man, that really puts perspective on things. Like some of these people weren't mentally functioning, like lobotomy type, stuff. Some of these people were just insane, right? Like, I mean, this was a institution, and that was kind of a glass to shut the F up, if you will. Like, okay, like what I have, that's inconvenient. These people, like these are non-recoverable, and people who are insane. Like this is a real challenge in life. Like I'll take what I got. So I think I've had some instances like that in life where it just puts perspective on things. And I don't know. I guess I was just raised that way. It's like life never is perfect. You go out this morning, go get your coffee, and you get rained on. I mean, just life just happens, and you have a
Yeah.
choice on how you respond to it. You can either let it be the worst thing in the world, like, oh, well, how dare it rain on me, or my hair is wet now, like, terrible. Or you can say, oh, okay, well, Mother Nature did its thing. Like, it's all perspective.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to get to that point, but um, you just can't dwell on the bad stuff. I think the other thing that's helped me is as I've gotten older, I've lost a few friends. One of my friends died in an ATV accident in age 33. I saw someone get run over by a car once. So you start seeing like, wow, like life is precious, life is short. Like if nothing is promised, like you gotta be a perfect person and be in a car accident tomorrow and die. So it's like, all right, well, I'm still here. Like, let's make the most of it, right?
Yep. Yeah, me and Steven are definitely really big on like mental toughness and a mindset. And that's pretty much a lot to do with it. We always say, like, no matter what you want to do in life, you got to get that mindset first, because like if you're down on yourself, just be like, I got to change my mindset somehow, some way. You got to figure out how to be a positive person, and like putting things in perspective is a good one.
Yeah. I mean, you can turn anything into a negative if you look hard enough. Like you just, like, man, I'm sore today. I went for a run. Man, I'm sore. Like, this sucks. Like, I feel like crap. Like, man, like, how dare me going out and doing something outside make my muscles sore? Like, I mean, you can turn anything into a negative. So, yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah, there's something I tell my son. I'm like, it's not what you see, but how you see it that matters. It's kind of like what you said. You can see a negative and a positive things if you look hard enough. So it's all in how you look at your life, your situation, and just pretty much anything in general.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, sir. So you also bike ride. I think you have a goal to get how many miles this year?
Yeah. So my first goal is to get 1,000 miles on the bike this year. I'm doing quite well on that, so I might go for 2024. 2024.
Oh, nice.
If I keep doing good progress. So I have we're just talking about how I'm blind. Now we're talking about bikes. So it's like, how does this guy bike ride?
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah. So in high school, I was really big into biking. I've done 80, 90-mile rides. I love biking. And obviously with vision impairment, that's a challenge. So I have a nice road bike, and it's on a smart trainer that's hooked up to my Apple TV digitally. So I have an app called Zwift, and you can do these courses. It simulates hills. You can increase the resistance. It keeps track of all your stats, like how many miles you've done, how many calories you've burned, how many feet you've climbed. All the things. And you can ride with people So if you know somebody on the app, like, hey, let's go for a ride. So it's been a good way for me to stay active and not just be grinding away on a stationary bike, staring at a wall. It's a much more interactive kind of game. You can upgrade your bike. You can get points. You can change your gear. So, I mean, it's been fun. And then I tend to listen to audiobooks when I'm on the bike. So, it's kind of kill two birds with one stone. Like, okay, I want to learn about this. Queue up that audiobook, put it on while I'm on the bike, and, kind of do two things at once.
You're big into learning.
Any good books lately?
Currently, I'm reading a book called Outlived. I need to look up the author. I don't remember, but he's a doctor that studies longevity. That's been a really interesting read. Some of the different things that he feels will help increase someone's lifetime. Not just lifespan, but also what he calls health span. It's one thing to live to be 100, another thing to be, physically active, doing what you want late into your life. So that's been a really good read. It's called Outlived.
I think I'm actually listening to that right now on my Spotify. I'm pretty sure that's the one I was listening to. Yeah, I am. Outlive the science of
Yeah.
The science and art
book.
of longevity.
Too funny.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it right now. It's a long book.
Yeah, it was getting a little depressing there for a little bit. I'm like, all these people keep talking about dying and stuff.
Yeah, he's talking about cancer. He's talking about like metabolic syndrome, like all these different things we struggle with in modern, society, and it's been pretty eye opening.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that book too. It's very interesting. It's funny because I was listening to a podcast and the author was on, and then I go on my Spotify to look for an audiobook and his popped up, and I was like, well, this is just a sign, like I better listen to it. But it's a pretty good.
Yeah,
David Sinclair,
the author.
Yeah, do you know who the author is?
Oh no, Peter Attia.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the same one.
Yeah, Peter Attia is a medical doctor.
Yeah, so that's been a good book. Trying to think. I read a lot of finance books.
Okay.
Just I'm kind of a nerd like that. Another good book is How to Unfuck Yourself. That book is really good on mindset and kind of taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture and asking the hard questions like, what do you really want in life and stuff. I found that one to be really helpful. Kind of making sure you're not just going through the motions of life, being intentional and doing what you want to do, not just that random path that happened to be in front of you.
So you read more financial books than you do health books then?
Yeah, I probably, you know, out of 100 books, probably 75% are finance based or business based or, kind of that kind of genre. And then, yeah, the other 25% probably health or like self-help type books. I read a lot. I'm on the bike a lot. So, I'm killing a book every like 2 weeks. So, it's still a lot of books in the health category.
So
But
yeah,
you gotta be healthy, right? Because it's like I tell Aaron, I'm like, if you don't have your health, all the wealth doesn't matter if you can't enjoy the money.
Yeah, 100%. Have you guys read the book Die with Zero? That's another good one.
no,
It
I
talks
haven't.
about the three phases of life. You have that book?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's called Die with Zero. It
Die
talks
with
about kind of
Zero.
three. Yeah, it talks about
Okay.
kind of three phases of life. Like early in life, you have time and energy, but no money. Which that's true. Like we're poor as hell when we're in college, right?
Yep.
And in midlife, we tend to have money and energy, or energy is an analogy for health. Like you're physically capable to do the things you want. So midlife, we have money and energy, but no time. Usually you're raising a family or whatever, and you tend to not have the time you want. And then end of life, 60 and over, typically, we have lots of money, lots of time, but not a lot of health or energy left. So it's a really interesting way of looking at life. Like, oh, well, there are some things that we kind of need to do at certain phases in life. Otherwise, we might not be able to do them. Like if you want to go skydiving, you're probably not going to be doing that at 99, right? So,
Yeah.
that might be something you need to do when you're young, when you have time and energy, but maybe not a lot of money. And midlife, like, you have the health and money, maybe you do a little more traveling, and it might suck because you don't have a lot of time, but it's going to be more enjoyable in that phase of life. So it's been interesting to kind of look at life at different phases versus just treating yourself the same. Like, you have to accept that you're going to get older, right? You have to accept that life's
unfortunately.
going to change. Yeah. So that's been a pretty helpful mindset book too. Like, okay, like, instead of pretending it's not going to happen, let's just accept it and plan for it.
Oh yes, yeah. It's like I just turned 40 not too long ago, and that was like, oh man, it's just so depressing. But then you get there, and it's like, you're still young, you still could do things, but now you're starting to think a lot more about like your body start hurting a little bit more. So you're thinking like,
Yeah.
how can I increase this health span instead of just a lifespan? I want to live a long time, but I definitely want to be active and make sure my bones and joints and everything are really good so I can live and have a more fulfilling life long into my 70s, 80s.
Yeah. And Outlive book talks a lot about the things you can do. Like, how, you want to get as built up as possible. That way, when that slow decay starts happening,
Yep.
You have some buffer. So as you guys have gotten older, like, what have you been noticing? Like for me, it's like weightlifting. Like it used to go in there, I just crush some heavy weights. The next day, I'm good to go. And now, the aches and pains. I'm stiff and sore for like 3-4 days.
Yeah, definitely. That's my main thing is my knee. My left knee is starting to hurt. Like I'm trying to, like you have a goal, 366 miles to run. But I'm telling Steven recently, I was like, I might not do that because I'm enjoying hiking more, and the running, I'm just not enjoying as much because now my knee hurts every time I run. So it's just things like that. Going and do some weightlifting. And it feels like there's a meme out there that says that Johnny Cash song, I hurt myself today.
Oh, yeah.
It's like going to the gym at 40 years old. That's what it feels like now. And when I was younger, I could just do anything. Like there's nothing to stop me.
In my 40s, I feel like I've gone to sleep normal and woke up with like an ache. Like I don't know if I slept weird, but like my back or my shoulder will hurt. A big one for me is that when I was younger in my 20s, I fractured my wrist like arm wrestling a guy, and I didn't really realize I fractured it, so it healed wrong. So 20 years later, now like I went to the doctors, I think maybe a year and a half ago, and he's like, well, basically you have end stage arthritis. There's no cartilage in your wrist. So now that has limited me into like what kind of exercises I could do, because like anything with like a bench press or that has to make my wrist bear the weight, it just has a probability to like to make it inflamed, which then makes it swollen, and then it just hurts, and I can't, like, it hurts to write, like, it basically makes it useless. So I'm like, that stopped me for a long time. I know Aaron used to get mad at me, like, bro, work out your legs then. So that was my excuse forever not to work out, but now I'm just
That's
doing.
a really good point. Yeah, train around it. Like, that's how I got into cycling, actually. So I was back when I still had better vision. I knew my eyesight were going to get worse over time. So I'm going to do the thing that I want to do now. And I had a crotch rocket, and I piled it in one day. It broke my leg in 4 places, and that's kind of how I got into bike riding, because I have no cartilage in my left ankle. And like, that running is so hard on. Like, I do a little bit now, but like, for the longest time, I just could not run, because that ankle would just swell up to like the size of a softball, and just it would just get super angry at me. But cycling was an impact. I could do cycling. So that's kind of how I got into cycling. I just started training around the ankle. It's like, well, I want to be healthy. Like, health has always been really important to me. So yeah, the first year I started cycling, I put like 1,500 miles in. Like, I just crushed it. So it's a good point. As we get older, we have to learn to train around our injuries.
Another thing I had when I turned 40 that I noticed, besides a physical thing, like, is my metabolic health. Like, that's what I could eat anything back in the day. Now I feel like like last year I really started feeling like really unwell. Like, I didn't know what it was, and my blood sugar was high, my blood pressure was high, and now it's like, when I eat something bad, like if I go get some Subway or something, or some In-N-Out or some fast food, I feel it. Like, I start having heartburn, my body feels all weird. So like, I really notice what I eat affects me so much more now that I'm getting older.
Yeah, I've noticed, it's funny you bring up the metabolic stuff. It used to be, if I wanted to lose 10 pounds, I'd just, stop eating the cookies or whatever, and it would just come right off, like, just like melts off.
Exactly.
And now it's like, man, like, you got to count those calories. You got to be dialed in. Otherwise, that needle on the scale does not move an inch. Like, come on. Like, I stopped drinking beer. I stopped eating chips. Like, what do you mean how I lost weight? Like, help me out.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just gaining muscle. I'm losing the fat. That's why it's staying the same.
I wish. I used to weigh like 235 with a 6-pack. And now I'm like 210, and I'm looking kind of soft. And it's like, man, like, I used to be heavier than this. I look great. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Yeah, that body
230 with the 6-pack. I'm like, that must have been was that in your powerlifting days?
Yeah, I mean, when I say 6-pack, it wasn't like shredded, but like, you could see, like, it was solid. It wasn't like the bubble, belly here.
How tall
it was during my.
How tall are you?
Yeah, how tall are you?
Oh, I'm 5'11".
Oh, 5'11".
You're pretty
tall.
I'm
reasonably tall, but yeah, when I was powerlifting, I was nationally ranked. So I mean, I was pretty good size for my height. And to be competitive in powerlifting, you have weight classes, so you want to be as light as possible while lifting as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I was usually around 10% body fat, so I wasn't like crazy lean, but I was strong enough. Like, the muscle definition was definitely coming through. And then that was in college, and it was funny when I started working, I couldn't maintain that level of muscle. It's like your body it had like a range of like natural, like, where it wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was heavier than that. So I wasn't gaining weight, but I was sitting at my desk a lot, and I wasn't as active. And after about 2 years of working, like, man, I'm getting really soft. I've lost 5 pounds and I look fat. Like, what the hell happened? So it's interesting. Like, the number on the scale isn't everything. Like, people get really fixated on that, but there's a lot more to health than just what that number on the scale is.
Yeah, definitely.
So
what are some of your big numbers for like your big 3 lifts, like your deadlift, the bench press, squat? What kind of numbers?
Yeah, so when I say I was nationally ranked, I need to be very clear. I was like in the junior division of like a relatively new organization, and I was what's called a raw lifter. So I wasn't using bench shirts, I wasn't using belts or squat suits. Like, you had to be 100% just you, which I enjoyed, because you get into the geared lifting. It's like the multiply bench shirts and all this crazy stuff. Like, I almost feel like it's a stunt more than like actual measured raw strength. So, I just want to clarify what kind of niche I was in. My best bench in competition was 365, which I was pretty happy with, because I had some shoulder issues. I was squatting about 460, and I was pulling deadlift around 575, 580 right there. Probably should have been pulling more, but it's just, it's hard in a powerlifting competition. You have to do all 3 in the same day. So it's not like, you show up at the gym one day, like, oh, I'm going to do bench today. I'm prepped, it's like, yeah, you got to do that. Then you start with squat, then you do bench, and then you do deadlift. So like by the time you get deadlift, you're getting pretty tired. Like you've been lifting heavy all day. And the way the competition works is you have 3 attempts to do each lift. So typically you open with a number you can hit. So like bench, if you can bench 365, for example, you might start with 325. Make sure you get your number in, because if you hit a 0, your total sucks. You got to get a number in there. So you do like 325, and it's like, all right, I'm going to take a run at, just under my personal record. Like I know I can hit maybe like 355. So I'll do that. That way, if I have a bad lift, I have another attempt at it. And then the last lift, typically you're trying for like a personal record, or if you've lost some weight or whatever, you're just, a little bit more than you actually think you can do. You're trying to push it, right? So by the end of that competition, I mean, you're just feeling completely wiped out. It really takes a toll on you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So let's just rewind there. You did powerlifting in, what is it, college? And you wrestled as well?
Yeah, primarily college. So I used to be a good lifter in wrestling, but it wasn't my focus.
When did you wrestle?
And then
what age were you?
In high school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, in high school. Middle school and high school.
Okay.
And I broke my ankle my junior summer of high school. Yeah, junior summer of high school. So that's when running kind of went out the window. I'm like, well, I want to stay active, So that's when I really got into cycling and powerlifting. And cycling was more for the cardio, but the powerlifting was just, I naturally put weight on. So it's like, okay, well, this is fun. I'm really good at this. And I guess, the doctor had recommended I start using protein powder to help my leg recover. And as I was like going to the gym and everything, taking the protein powder, I was getting like really strong, really quick. And I'm like, wow, this stuff really works. Like, an 18-year-old kid, like taking protein powder, my body's definitely going to respond.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this stuff really works. Like, this isn't too hard. I should keep doing this.
And what'd you do to prepare for, like, how did you prepare to gain, like, what did you do to gain all that muscle? Did you just work out every day? What were you eating or stuff like that?
Yeah, it was very systematic. Like I said, I started in high school. So by the time my senior in college, we're talking 5 years of work here.
Okay, yeah.
The first thing is not to gain too much weight too quickly. I see people do what you call the quote dirty bulk, where you eat a bunch of calories and you try to bulk up really quick. And you do need to gain weight, but you got to do it in a way that's controlled. So typically, I would try not to gain more than like 5 pounds over a 3-month period. I found out it was a pretty good number.
Okay.
And each 3-month cycle, I would kind of target a certain lift. So like, okay, I'm going to really focus on bench press for the next 12, 16 weeks. Or I really focus on squat next 12, 16 weeks. And I kind of focus my program around that. And then the first like 8 to 9 weeks of that cycle, I'd be trying to gain weight, muscle weight, of course. But the first chunk is where you're doing your muscle building. So you're, a typical program for legs, for example, might be 12 to 10 reps of squats for 4 to 5 sets in twice a week, which is a lot of volume, which is a little bit counterintuitive. People are like, oh, well, you want to do heavier weights, right? So you got to build the muscle first. So you start the first, like, let's say 6 weeks with volume. And then from like week 6 to 9, you start doing more, let's say 8 rep type work. And you're kind of starting to change that volume work you've done into a higher load. And then from like 9 to 12 weeks, you might go 5 to 8 or, 5 to 7 reps. And then if you do a 16-week program, that lasts, 3 weeks before, or a week before, you start doing like your 2 to 3s, like really start getting up there. And that week 15, you might attempt a couple singles. And then that last week's the deload week before like your competition or the day that you actually want to do the lift. Maybe you're not the competition, you just want to set a personal record. But you take a week where you cut all your weights in like half. And what you're doing is you're letting your body recover. So what the progression is supposed to do is the first half builds muscle. The middle half helps work on your tendons and connecting tissues. You don't want to go from 12 reps to 1 rep. You're going to tear something in your shoulder. You're going to tear something in your hip. We've all done it, right? You can't just jump from reps to like, a 1 rep max. You got to transition. And then that last like 3 weeks, you're actually training your nervous system. So when you're powerlifting, you're fighting several things. You got to be strong enough. You got to have the tendons that can do it. But your body wants to protect itself. It's not going to let you push yourself beyond your maximum capability to prevent injury. It's not good if you're, hunting a lion or something, and you get injured throwing the spear, right? Like your body naturally wants to protect itself. So the last couple of weeks there is really a neurological training. You're not actually getting stronger. You're teaching your body how to use it.
Right.
So a long-winded answer. So you do that.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
3-month period, if you will, and then you start over. So it's just in the stair-stepping progress. You incrementally just keep adding and building brick by brick to your frame. And over years, 5 pounds of 3 months, that doesn't sound like a lot, but there's 4 rotations you can do in a year. So like you think of a school quarter system, kind of fits in pretty well with that. That's 20 pounds a year. Well, after 4 or 5 years, I mean, you're stacking on some pretty serious weight.
Yeah.
And it's solid. It's not just like fluffy, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing it that way, it's going to be really solid weight.
How dialed in was like your nutrition to kind of maintain that 5 pounds in 3 months? Because I feel that's kind of slow if you're doing that.
I wouldn't say I was not as dialed in as like a pro athlete, but I ate reasonably clean. When I say reasonably clean, I'd be eating like Chipotle, burritos, stuff like that. A lot of chicken and rice, protein shakes, stuff like that. But I wasn't like anal about it. If I went to a barbecue and there was like barbecue chicken and corn and stuff, I mean, I'd be eating it up. Nice. I mean, college, you're walking around campus and all that. I was putting 15,000 steps a day, and so I had a pretty good base metabolism to really kind of burn all the junk calories out. And being young, you can kind of get away with not being perfect. Yeah. So, I think as athletes get older, they tend to have to dial in a little bit more. But when you're younger and you're really active, you don't have to be quite perfect.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, then I never even thought about building the tendons. That's just like in the joints, right? Like and your
like all your connecting tissues. So your muscles, like let's say in your shoulder, you got your pectoral muscle, which is your meat, but then in like the shoulder area, you got all the connecting tissues. That has to be trained too. And one of the most common things you see is like somebody's really strong, but they're taking some time off. They come back to working out. They're still strong, but that connecting tissue is all kind of deteriorated, and that's how you get injured.
Yeah.
So you have to build that into your training program. Otherwise, as you get stronger, you will get injured. It will always happen. So that has to be a part of your training program.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard of that. Like, so you're just like, so if I'm just doing curls, would that be doing any of the tendon workouts?
The connecting tissue is more about what your weight range is. So like if you're doing curls, you're always doing 12 to 10 reps. You're getting that good pump feel. You're going to be building muscle, but if you try to jump to like, I'm just randomly going to try 1 rep max, next week, and you go for that, you're probably going to tweak something.
Yeah.
You need to kind of start phasing into that, getting your body used to doing 8 reps, 7 reps, 5 reps, 3 reps. Like, kind of phase into that over a period of weeks, and your body, you're going to feel it. Like, you're going to, come into the gym the next day, like, man, like that one little spot in my shoulder, that one little spot in my hip, really sore. That's your connecting tissue starting to thicken up. It's like your body's going, I need to start working on this now. So you're never doing the same thing in the gym. It's always kind of this changing process, and that's what your body will respond to.
Nice. Yeah, because I've been lifting, and like that's what I kind of do. Everything I've been doing so far lately has just been up to like 12 to 15 reps. If I could do more than 15, I'm just like, okay, I need to add a little bit more weight because I haven't done
maybe cycle between like 12 to 10 to 12 reps. That's a good number, I think. And then do that for like 8 weeks, and then throw in some weeks of like 8 to 7 reps. That's a good kind of transition range. It's heavy enough where you're going to feel sore, but it's not really heavy enough that you're likely to hurt yourself. And then after doing that for a few weeks, you can start moving in maybe to 5 to 4 rep range, but just, be slow about it. Don't do it in, the next workout.
And it's funny that this week actually, I go to the gym all the time, and then like at work, I work construction, the guy that works with me, he doesn't go to the gym at all. And there's this big old load of lumber, and he's like, I could pick that up. And he does it. And I'm just like, man, you go to the gym and you don't go to the gym and you lifted it. But I can lift that. So I lifted it. And then I tore something in my, in my fucking left hip area. And it's been really hard to move my legs. So I haven't been in 3 days of the gym. It's getting better though after 3 days, but I'm just like,
welcome to 40.
I shouldn't have did that. But it was like you're saying, I did one big heavy rep pretty much.
A lot of times a hip injury starts in the hamstrings. So maybe try stretching out your hamstrings and doing some work there. I ran into that when I used to do a lot of deadlift. I mean, when you're lifting a crazy heavy deadlifts and stuff, your hamstrings will
Yeah.
get really tight. That's where a lot of your power comes from. But then it leads to an imbalance in your hips, and you'll feel it in your like the front side of your hip and your lower back.
Yeah.
And
So I
if
feel
you're
it.
having issues there, it usually means you have really tight hamstrings, and you need to start stretching them out. I know this as a powerlifter, we do a lot of deadlifts and squats, right? So your
Yeah.
hamstrings get really out of balance, and you gotta work that stuff. So something to think about.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
good to know.
Yeah, it's my left knee has been giving me issues a lot lately. So that's because I was running. I've been running a lot, running a marathon, all that stuff. So I've been thinking like, I need to start actually because I wasn't doing many leg days because I work construction and my legs have a lot of muscle on them. But I went and did some like quads and I'm like, oh man, I can't really do any quads. So I've been like working on my hamstrings and my quads a lot more lately, and hopefully that would help my knee out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been
Yeah,
doing.
knees. I find. Do you do any leg extensions?
What is? I mean, what do you
That's
mean?
where you sit and then you lift your leg straight up, and usually there's a machine that puts weight on like your shins.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I find that really helps my knees because it forces your quads to work kind of independently, and that'll kind of help stabilize your knee. So maybe try doing some leg extensions, and
And
you
I
don't
got
need to use a
pretty,
lot of weight.
yeah, and I got pretty big quads just from bending over all the time for 20 years at work.
Yeah,
So my quads are pretty fucking thick, but that probably will maybe even work it out. Like you're saying, work out the different section of it or something.
yeah. And powerlifting, a big thing we do is, everyone thinks, oh, you lift a big weight, and that is true. We do lift a big weight, but we also do a lot of stabilizing work. So like for bench press, if I want a really big bench press, I'm probably doing a lot of dumbbell press, dumbbell incline press, butterflies. I'm doing a lot of those kind of stabilizing muscles. That way, when I do load up the 350 plus pounds, my body can stabilize it and I can do it correctly.
Yeah.
When you get into those heavier weights, form is everything because your body isn't designed to do that kind of weight. So if you don't have good stabilizations and stuff in your system, you will get hurt. So like your knee, I used to have knee problems too from squats, and I found leg extensions were the cure for that. As long as it's not like truly injured with like a tear or something. So something to try.
Yeah, I'll definitely try that. And that's the thing too. Like when I first started the gym, like a couple of years ago, like when I first started going full time, pretty much like that's the first thing I did. Like, oh, let me try to start lifting heavier. And I started, and then my form was off and all that stuff. So I got injured and then I took some time off. And then next time, like, I'm doing lightweight and just figuring out my form first. So that is definitely, and just slowly, like now I'm just like, I don't really care about the heavyweight. I'm 40. I'm not trying to get all bulky like I'm 20 or something. So I'm like more doing like reps, like with lighter weight and just get my form good.
Yeah, there's something you could do. Again, powerlifting, it's all about balance. So, getting injured is the best way to deter your training. You never want to get injured because that sets you back 3-4 months. So a lot of what we do in powerlifting is injury prevention. So one of the tools I use is what's called a 1 rep max calculator. So you can just go online, find like 1repmax.com, and you plug in your numbers. Like I can bench, 185 pounds 10 times, and it'll spit out what your 1 rep max is, approximate. And what I like about using a calculator is you're not putting that load on your body. So you can stay within that training zone you want to be, but you can still see if you're making progress, which I find super helpful. Like, okay, what I'm doing is working. The math says it works, but I don't have to do a 1 rep max and hurt myself. So that's something I like doing is, use those calculators to track your progress without actually hurting yourself.
That's awesome. I don't even know about those calculators. That's cool. 1repmax.com, right?
Yeah, the one I like to use is 1-rep-max.com or but there's a bunch of them out there. And you can download the calculator apps on your phone. I mean, there's a bunch of them. It's pretty common within the lifting communities.
Another question I have is like about your back. A lot of people have back issues. Do you work out your back or what do you do to help like the lower back, like stabilize so you don't basically just normal pain?
Good question. I hurt my hip earlier or August last year, and it was hurting my back too. I've never really had back issues, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about that.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing is getting back to what we're talking about, making sure you don't have really tight hamstrings, stretch out your legs, and do the flexibility work on your hips. Typically, lower back pain comes when your hip itself is rotating. Or isn't rotating correctly, and the flexing is coming from your lower back. So if you're doing a squat and say your hip is rotating correctly, you're hunching your back a little bit to get that motion. So you really want to make sure that your hips are stretched out, especially the front side of your hip. we sit so much that the front side of your hips can kind of get inelastic. So you want to
Okay.
really kind of focus on that area. Like lunges, for example, are a really good way to stretch out some of those tendons that get tightened up from sitting so much. But usually lower back pain is a symptom of something else. It's either really tight hamstrings or lack of flexibility in the hip. And you got to find that root cause. So the source of the pain usually isn't the problem. It's
Yeah.
usually a symptom of something down the chain somewhere else.
Nice.
That's funny. Something I was talking to Aaron about recently is that since I've been working out, I've noticed a lot of my body kind of aches and pains have went away. And I was like, I don't know if that's from other muscles getting stronger around that area and kind of compensating. So like your knee and your back isn't using its normal kind of, I guess, weaker muscles, but now there's more meat around it to kind of support it. I'm like, my back's been feeling all right lately.
Yeah, it could be getting a little stronger, or it's kind of like running. If you haven't run in a while, you're going to be really sore after that first run. But once
Oh
your
yeah.
muscles are conditioned and stuff, it's no longer a one rep max effort for you to get out of the chair anymore. It's like oh, this is just a normal curl. I can do this 15 times, no problem. I won't even feel it. So it's just probably a sign of you being in better shape and being stronger.
Nice, nice.
You used to be a long distance runner, right? When was that?
Um, I was never specifically a long distance runner. I did
Oh,
it
okay.
as training for wrestling.
Oh,
Um,
okay. My bad.
I mean, I have run a half marathon before and stuff. It was
How was that?
not really. I mean, it was fine. I was like, I think I was freshman in college or high school. It was
Oh,
before I
okay.
broke my ankle. Um, I used to do long distance track, and the cross country coach, she's like, "Oh, today we're going to run 5 miles, or today we're going to run 8 miles." Just give you whatever random prescription. I had no idea what I was doing. He was just the coach was just telling me what to do, and I'd do it.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So
I
you
remember coming to practice one day, and he's just like, "Yeah, today we're going to run the 5 mile and the 8 mile course at the same time. You're going to run a half marathon." I'm like, okay, whatever you say, coach. So yeah, I ran a half marathon today. I didn't even know it was like a special thing. I mean, I was wiped out. It was a hard run, but you
yeah.
know, I just did what coach told me.
Oh, and I
So
noticed that you went hiking too, like last weekend
yeah,
with the buddy, right?
yeah. So I went hiking with accidentally retired another friend on Twitter. Um, and you guys probably wondering, how does he hike? He's blind. And you're
Yeah,
right, I am blind.
that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
was
what
my
I use,
question.
I use hiking poles. So I kind of use them to feel out the ground in front of me. And like I said, I can still read out my right eye. So what I typically do is I have someone hiking in front of me, so I can see their backpack or whatever the movement is, and I can follow that. And I can hear their voice too, so I can kind of follow their voice. And I'm just using the poles to make sure that I'm on solid footing. I'm not going to step off the edge of the trail, that not a bunch of loose gravel, or I can feel the incline if it's going up or down. I'm maybe not as fast of a hiker as I used to be, but the hiking poles really help me a lot. Make sure I know that I'm stepping on solid ground. If I do slip or whatever, I got the poles to kind of help stabilize me a little bit. Um, and that's been working pretty well. I think we went for 6 miles that day. It was
There's
a good
no
solid
big.
hike.
Is there any big cliffs off to the side of you? Because sometimes me and Steven go on some hikes, and there's some pretty big
I've been
downfalls on
on,
the light.
yeah, I've actually been on some hikes where there were some pretty big cliffs and stuff. And we kind of got to the point like, yeah, I think we need to turn around. Like this isn't
Yeah.
going to be safe. Like let's just not let's not tease the devil here.
Yeah, it's not worth
So
it.
there are definitely been some hikes where it's like, all right, this is probably beyond what I should be doing. Like for
Yeah.
safety reasons, we're just going to not do that. Because you're right, I am at a higher risk of slipping and falling. And like
Yeah.
one thing to slip and fall on a gravel trail versus a cliff. So you
Yes,
gotta be smart
definitely.
about it.
And you
So
said,
and that's a good point. Not to interrupt you.
oh, go ahead.
Is you do see in the disability community, there's always like one or two people who are like, I'm going to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro and I have no hands and feet and I'm going to, bear crawl this thing and like
Yeah.
you can do whatever you set your mind to. Like, it's like, I forget, someone had a great term for it. It's like, courage porn or whatever. It's like, you got to be somewhat realistic. Like you have to accept that you do have a limitation and you need to be
Yes.
smart about it. Like, yeah, you could get a support team around you and swim across the Atlantic Ocean or whatever, right? But that may not be the smartest thing to do with your time. So we as we get older and stuff, we do need to make choices and we do need to be smart. Like if you slip and fall, what are the chances of you getting injured? And if you get injured, how likely are you going to be bounce back from that? Like my grandma's 93 years old. She probably doesn't need to be out hiking when there's a cliff on the edge, right? Like
Yeah.
you just got to pick your battles.
And I was going to ask you, like you say you can see a little bit out of your right eye. Could you see the views at the top of the mountain? Like, or at all, or like how the views look
Yeah. So
with your condition?
that's the thing. Is like my peripheral vision, like out here, is all gone, but in the very center, very tiny straw hole that I can look through, I actually see 20/20. It's quite clear.
Oh, okay.
I just don't see very much at the same time. So when I'm out in nature and stuff, I can kind of scan the area, look side to side, up and down. I can kind of piece it together in your head. And your
Nice.
brain does a really good job of like building a picture. Like when you guys are in your environment, you're only seeing your central vision too, but it looks a lot bigger because you've already looked around, you kind of know your environment, and your brain has kind of got that mental image built. And then you might see something out of the corner of your eye, and that's your peripheral vision triggering, but it doesn't actually build the picture for you. It's just letting you know, oh, there's something there, and then your brain will look at it. So the peripheral vision is more of a triggering system. Your central vision is what actually builds that mental image, and you really seeing it through that mental image. So it can kind of be deceiving if I'm in a controlled environment or environment that doesn't change much, like the mountaintop, like the mountains don't move, right? The sky doesn't move. But I can put it together pretty well in my head. Where I'll really struggle is like a street fair where there's like lots of moving people, lots of different things going on.
Yeah.
I just physically cannot look through that small hole in my vision and get enough information fast enough to process that changing environment. It's just going too quickly. I just can't get that data. The data rate's not there.
Okay.
So the busier the environment, the more I struggle. And it's gotten to the point where I don't, my vision's tight enough that like a restaurant or anything like that, it's just too much going on. I can't keep up. I might remember where I went to get into the restaurant, so I can kind of follow that path. But if you were to just put me into a random restaurant and say, okay, look around and figure out where to go, I just wouldn't have the ability to do that anymore. Just not enough information.
No.
Awesome.
I had a question that you had brought up, like when you're going on a hike, you could like hear the person in front of you. Do you feel like your hearing is like you have a more awareness of your hearing to kind of compensate for you not being able to see as well?
Yeah, people ask me this question about hearing and smell. It's like, does it become superhuman or whatever?
Are you an X-Men?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's superhuman, but you do learn how to use your other senses. So, a couple examples like hearing. If you're hiking, you can hear the footsteps on the gravel from the person in front of you. You're in a quiet environment, usually out in nature. Hopefully it's not by freeway. So yeah, you can hear the footsteps. You can hear people's, like the pant legs rubbing. You can hear if they have a water ball in their backpack, maybe that's clicking or jangling. So you kind of pick up on these things like, okay, I can't see the person, but I know they're over here somewhere, and kind of get going in the right direction. The other thing is smell. And I didn't really think this would be something, but I've really noticed that smell helps me out. So like if I'm walking by a building and I smell cigarette smoke, it's like, oh, well, I'm probably near an alleyway or something. Or if I smell water, like, oh, there must be a water fountain nearby. So you just kind of start picking up on these little cues because your brain's very flexible. It's going to use whatever it can to figure out its environment. So the other thing is like hearing. It's like if you're walking by a concrete wall, you'll hear the echo changes from your footstep. Versus if you're walking in like an open field, like you don't hear that echo. So you just kind of start picking up on these little things. And, if you're in an environment you're familiar with specifically, it'll kind of cue your brain like, oh yeah, I must be by that brick wall, or oh, I'm near that, little pond or whatever. I could smell the moisture. So it definitely kind of cues you into your environment if you're in an area you're familiar with. Otherwise, it's just information. Like, oh, great, there's like something here. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Switching gears, what about your nutrition now? Like, do you eat a lot of protein? Because you're still lifting weights and stuff like that, like, right?
Yeah. I eat a fair amount of protein still. So I tried the fasting thing for a while, like intermittent fasting and all that, and I was really struggling with it. I found that I just wasn't getting enough calories when I needed it. So I'm really trying to focus on the timing of my meals right now. So typically I work out before lunch. So I want to make sure I have around 400 calories of something with proteins and fats right before, about an hour before I work out. I don't want it so heavy that it sits heavy, but I need to have some energy in my system to get a good workout. And then my biggest meal is usually after workout. That's a lot of protein. And when you after workout, everyone wants to eat protein. That's good. You do want protein, but you also want to have some carbs and fats because Otherwise, your body will just burn the protein as energy because you're in an energy depleted state. You need to make sure that that protein goes to protein purposes and not just burned off as energy. So I usually have carbs and fats with my protein. I don't have like a really lean protein shake after I work out. So that's my biggest meal. I'll typically have an actual like meal, like a hamburger with whatever. So if you're gonna have a dirty meal, do it right after you work out because your body's burning calories, rebuilding your glycogen stores. That would be the time to do it. And then I usually have around like 5 o'clock another small meal, maybe 400 or 500 calories, not a huge meal. You don't really need that many calories. I mean, like eating 3 meals a day, big meals like the American diet, it isn't really necessary. As long as you have that big meal right after you work out, your body's going to be building muscle. And if you keep your other meals a little bit smaller, you're going to keep your weight in check, especially as we get older.
Nice. That's what I need to do. That's one thing I struggle with. Like I'll be doing really good on my meals, and then eventually, like yesterday, I went and ate bad. Like, damn it, I just ruined all my progress. Now I gotta get back on it and just keep starting over.
Yeah.
It's a mental battle.
There's usually one day a week where I'll have some chips or something and kind of throw it down with my burrito. But I'm never too bad. Like I've never had like the sweet tooth. I never really crave like sugar and stuff. Like I had a little bit of like the salty, savory. I get those cravings sometimes, like chips and stuff like that. But and cakes and pies and cookies and all that never really been a problem for me. So that's always been good.
That's funny that you brought that up. That's the reason why I stopped fasting was because when I did have my window to eat, I just felt like I had to eat too much. And that feeling of being too full, I did not enjoy that.
Yeah, I hate that. Then you got to go take a nap for 2 hours. And
yeah. Some people say they have that issue too with fasting. So it's like not for everybody.
Yeah, I do fasting, but when I do it, it's usually during my deload week. So I was telling you about the like 3-month process I do.
Yeah.
I want to be doing it when I'm not putting a lot of stress on my body because when I am lifting or cycling a lot, I just feel like garbage if I start fasting. It's just too much. I need to be getting something in me. But if I'm taking a week off, or let's say I'm injured, like when I hurt my hip and I wasn't working out as much, and those are good times to do fasting. Like get your calories down and kind of let your body kind of work through those glycogen stores, burn off that blood sugar and stuff without a real rigorous workout. But if you're running a lot, you're doing a lot of cycling, or you're lifting heavy and stuff, like your body's kind of naturally doing those things anyways without fasting. So fasting after every workout may not be the best move if you're trying to build muscle and stuff. If you're trying to lose weight, it might be very effective. But if you're trying to build muscle, get stronger and stuff, fasting is not always the best move.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What are your thoughts about the current health in America?
It's funny you mentioned it. So I told you guys I did running yesterday. There's a club I go with called Achilles. It's a bunch of volunteers that help blind people run. So I run with a guide. So it's super cool. They get you out. They make sure you're safe. A lot of these people are very accomplished runners. So you kind of learn a lot from them. So the person I was running with yesterday was actually a doctor.
Nice.
And I was kind of talking to her about healthcare. We just kind of got chatting during the run. And I was kind of joking. I was like, it's kind of like sick care. You don't really do anything until the person's already broken. And then you're trying to put the pieces back together after they're, sick and dying. She's like, yeah, you're 100% right. Like we do almost no preventative maintenance in this country, which I think is really unfortunate. I mean, I think an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Yep. We really should be trying to get ahead of this. And, I went to the doctor 2 years ago and I weighed like 210 or so. And I should probably lose a few pounds or whatever. And I was like, hey, you look great. You're perfect. I'm like, well, I mean, can I do better? Like, well, surely I'm not perfect. Like, surely we can improve somewhere. Like, I'm not, I had some cookies the other day. Like, you want to talk to me about that? Maybe it's just interesting. If you're not already super sick, they're very nonchalant. Like, oh yeah, you're doing great. We don't have to put any. It's almost like our doctors are drug dealers. You know what I mean? Like they wait till you're sick and they try to peddle some pills on you. I don't know. It bothers me.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then, everyone you got the medical costs up for America, and taxpayers have to pay a lot of that. People go bankrupt and stuff like that. Like because no one has no preventative maintenance. No one, COVID happened. No one talked about what we can do to like be healthier so we don't get when a respiratory infection comes, it won't be as bad. Stuff like
and then like the way we treat people makes them worse sometimes. Like let's just treat the symptoms, like insulin or diabetes, for example, right? Diabetes is essentially a form of insulin resistance. Like you've had too much blood sugar, your body stops responding to insulin. So what do we do to treat diabetes? We give them more insulin, which makes them even more insulin resistant. And
Yeah.
it's like this, like let's just reinforce this already like out of control cycle. Like, well, why wouldn't we try to like intervene and like break that cycle? But that's not what our modern medical system does. So yeah, it's super concerning. I don't know how to fix it, but I definitely don't want to fall into that trap.
Yeah. And then also like you got the food system. That's a huge deal too, because it's all for profit. And these corporations, huge big corporations and farm, like they transform the farming, and now everyone's eating basically processed food. Like most of America is eating processed foods mostly all the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at American history, well, world history, let's say, it's not an American problem. Like the 1920s, going through the Great Depression, we had to figure out a way to feed a large population cheaply
Yeah, that makes
with
sense.
shelf-stable foods, right? Like we wanted food that would last a long time.
Yeah.
And that's been the holy grail since the dawn of time. Like if mankind could grow food cheaply, low effort, and use their energies to do other things like develop technologies and stuff, that's great. If we could do it so the foods were safe, you didn't get bacteria in the food, you didn't get like funguses and like icky things. I mean, that was a big killer back in the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
And if you do it in a way that was shelf stable, where you could save that food for a long period of time, the effort didn't go to waste. That is the holy grail, right? So if you put those three metrics in place and you optimize for it, you get the American food system. Like it wasn't malicious. It's just those were the goals, and they achieved that very successfully. Unfortunately, that's not good for our health. Those types of foods are not good for us. They're highly processed, and the body was not designed to run well on them. But that's what the country has made a priority: is like feed our citizens with cheap and safe, shelf-stable foods, and they did it really well.
Yeah, and it makes sense too, because like for all of human history, pretty much, you had famines, you had people starving still to this day. Half the, like Stephen always says, like half the world's fat, and half of them is
People
starving.
died from E. coli because their meat was tainted. Those are very real problems not that long ago. So I mean, our food system is kind of a miracle, but we need to look past that now and see what the next steps are to keep us healthy.
Yeah. And like how many people have actually been brought out of starvation and poverty because of our system and this new technology of the shelf life and all that. But now people are overindulging in it as well.
Well, it's interesting. There's a research study done in, I believe it was Poland during World War II. And it studies some of these metabolic issues like, cardiovascular disease and stuff like that. And Poland was going through a famine during World War II. So they have this great study where it's like the country basically starved its people unintentionally. But they noticed over that period of time, heart disease almost stopped, cancer almost stopped, diabetes didn't exist. Like all of these like conditions that are related to like poor diet went away because people weren't overeating anymore. And then all those conditions started ticking back up after World War II again, when the food supply returned to normal. So like we have some great points in history that highlight this problem.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, look it up. I forget what the study's called, but it was World War II, Poland. Some really good data around that.
And then what else? You got anything else, Stephen, about food?
No, I was just going to add to the way the medical system. I was just talking to my fiance yesterday about it. It's kind of sad that they only really help you is when you're already sick. Like there's nothing about eating better. There's nothing about exercising. It's all about here's the pill. Take this. We're going to put a Band-Aid on it to treat the symptoms, but we're not going to get to the root cause. And it's just a backwards way, I think, of having the medical field. It's weird to have things like that. Like I think our medical system needs a rehaul where we focus on the root causes. We focus on the health. You got to exercise. You got to do the things you don't necessarily want to do if you want the longevity and kind of to go about your health in a proper way, in my opinion.
Yeah, think about your car. You take it in and put an oil change every 3,000 to 4,000 miles. You do the transmission fluid swap out. You do a lot of preventative work on your car, right? You don't wait till smoke's spilling out of the hood or it's leaking or something, right? Like it's just interesting to me that we treat our body so differently than we do a car or a house or anything like
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's like the only area that we wait for something to break. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I never thought about just driving your car into the ground. Then you take it to the mechanic. Hey, my
Like
wheels are
buy your
falling
new
off.
car, drive it 30,000 miles, and like you're stuck on the side of the freeway. Like, well, why did it break? Like, what happened? Like, well, yeah, you didn't take care of it. Of course, it broke.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good perspective, like an analogy.
And I think a lot of this has to do with like, like education. Like this is why we have this podcast, Health Over Everything podcast, and people that more people promoting healthy lifestyles and stuff, because you got a big wave of people saying like, oh, you're fat, you're beautiful. Like there's covers of Sports Illustrated with, oh, look at this beautiful like obese woman. Like, and obesity is like, oh, you can't cure it, or there's a bunch of misinformation about it. But then you got a lot more people promoting healthy lifestyles too. So that I think could help a lot of people.
The thing about the people promoting healthy lifestyle, I'm noticing a trend where they're promoting the image of health. And the image of health isn't necessarily healthy. You got these fitness models that are super shredded and stuff. And you notice like on Instagram and stuff, a lot of them are dropping dead.
Yeah.
The difference
like
between
bodybuilders? Oh, you mean like
the Instagram fitness model industry? I haven't seen it lately, but like last year, it seemed like every week, like, this influencer died because of like diuretic use or like these, diet pills they were taking and it killed them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all in like 30s, right? Like super young.
Yeah.
So, and then we were talking about this offline, powerlifting's guilty too. You're like, oh, the guy's really strong and powerful. He must be healthy. Like, well, he's doing steroids. He's snorting ammonia. He's doing these, other stimulants. Like, you take anything to the extreme, it's not necessarily the best for you. So
yeah.
You gotta find some balance.
Yeah, like I think health is also too. Like I have my thing right here on the wall. It's a balance of stuff. I got sleep. Nutrition. What is it? Laugh. Just laughing a little bit. Meditation. Just stress and all these other things. So it's not just what you eat as well. Obviously there's a lot of other. The whole lifestyle about health in general is, so people might think they're fucking healthy, but they're not. Like you got skinny people but they're stressing out all the time and they die of a heart attack.
Yeah.
How do you do with stress?
I'm one of those weird people. I don't really get stressed. I'm wired differently. I don't know why. Like I will get like in a moment, I might get really intense. And like for me, stress is like this problem's here. I need to attack it and fix it, right? But like I never lose sleep over it. I'm just I'm not one of those people that worries. If something's bothering me, I take steps to fix it. If I can't fix it, I just have to let it go, right? Like some things in life we can't control. And I've been pretty good about being able to detach myself from those things I can't control. Like my eyesight, for example, right? I've stressed some people out. And it's like, well, it is what it is. I'll do the best I can, but I can't fixate on that and let that, rule my mind. So yeah, I've noticed over the years, for whatever reason, I process stress differently than the average person, and it's great
meditate?
for me. I do actually, not in like the like in the movies where it's like sit cross-legged and like hum or whatever. But most mornings I try to leave my phone on the charger, kind of separate from the electronics a bit, and just kind of clear my mind. And it seems to me that solutions tend to come to me in the morning. It's like if I get rid of all the distractions, it comes clear to me what I need to do that day or that week, or if there's something that's been bothering me. Like I said, I don't really get stressed, but if there's something on my mind, like, hey, this needs to get taken care of, it seems to me when I in the morning get rid of the distractions, the answers become very clear very quickly. And that's kind of my meditative process. Just give myself the space to think. And our world is so cluttered with stimulus, TV, radio, the apps on your phone, and it's easy to crowd out the actual mind trying to talk to you. So I guess that's my form of meditation. It's not real formal, but it's been very helpful for me.
Nice.
Yeah, something you said made me think maybe the fact that you do have your eye condition kind of helped your ability to let go and see certain things in that aspect where, if there's something out of my control, no amount of worrying about it is going to change it. If anything, it's going to make it worse. If you're just sitting there thinking about, oh, poor me, I can't do this, I can't do that. Like you could probably think yourself into a depressive state if you focus on only the bad stuff.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it, but you're right. Like when I was in my 20s, it was how can I fix this? How can I fix this? How can I fix this? You know, I was like doing all the research on. Like you're asking me about the different genetic studies and stuff. That's why I know all of it. Like I used to research all this. Like I gotta fix this thing. Like I gotta,
Yeah.
solve this. And I got to a point where I was like, it can't be solved. I just gotta accept it. And that took time. But you're right. Like you have to understand what things you can't control and just let them go. And you can't do that for everything. Like obviously, if something's important, you need to go take care of it. But there's a time and a place where you just have to recognize that the world has put this upon you. It is what it is, and you need to move on. You may not be 6'7", you may want to be 6'5", right? If you're not 6'5", it is what it is, right? Like you can't change that. So there's no point wasting mental energy on it.
Yeah, I'm 5'7", and how many girls told me in my life, you're not tall enough. So, at some point you got to accept it and just say, okay, what can I control? I could get buff. I could eat good. I could get my money up, but I can't fix my 5'7"ness.
Yeah, it is what it is. So you just accept it and you move on. And that's kind of why I'm with my eyesight. It's just like, well, it is what it is. I'll move on. Yeah. So I have, we live in America, one of the greatest countries in the world. We're safe, have financial opportunity. We have a lot of resources around us. I know we bag on the medical resources, but we do have healthcare if something happens. Like we're in a pretty good spot in the world. Like we don't have a lot to complain about.
Mm-hmm. Seems like you have a lot of gratitude. Do you practice gratitude at all, or what are some things you're grateful for? Just probably for a lot of things, but
yeah, I'm financially secure. That's been a big one for me. Like going blind, you hear a lot of sad stories. People, missing out on work and having financial struggles. So I'm very grateful for that. Being a blind person, that always was a concern of mine. So I've got that figured out. Being healthy, my grandma just had COVID. She's 93. She beat COVID. Freaking amazing. But it does remind you, like, hey, our time is coming at some point, right?
Yeah.
So, healthy, feeling good. Really grateful for that. And for me, I guess just being able to live my life on my own terms. Like, there's a lot of people that have other people around them that may dictate what they have to do with their life, either a boss or a toxic relationship or something they're not happy about, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate that I've been able to put myself in a situation where I don't have to tolerate that in my life. I'm very much living my life on my terms, which I'm very grateful for, because I know that's not a luxury a lot of people have.
Yep, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Like
how did what was one of your grandma's keys to live into 93? Because is she pretty healthy? Like, is she like active, like health lifespan kind of thing?
It's funny. Both my grandmas are in their 90s. One's 92, one's 93. I mean, so they're very, very different too. Like I'm trying to think of what's common between them. The one grandma is a very strict German woman. Like, she's brought up with a, German family. It's like very strict. You do what you're told, and this is very stern German proper woman, right? And she's 92, and she's always been healthy, very active, traveled a lot, was mentally engaged. She's a very intelligent person. So I think just being an active participant in life is a big piece of it. A lot of people, when they retire, they sit and watch TV for 30 years and die, right?
No, that's not happening. Yeah.
She didn't do that. She was volunteering. She's getting out and doing stuff. She's got hobbies. So that's a big piece of it. My other grandma, she's like the exact opposite. She's the huggy person, super bubbly. But she has the like most unhealthy lifestyle. She eat like cakes. She's like never worked out in her life. Like she's just like this
crazy,
this kind of bubbly character. But I for her, I think the positivity was huge. Like, she had some challenges in life. I mean, most of these people grew up in the Great Depression. Like, think about that. These people are old as hell. They grew up in the Great Depression. My grandma, one of them had polio, right? Like, I mean, these are things they had to deal with in life.
Yeah.
But she always just had this super positive attitude. And even when she's not feeling well, even when life's kind of down, she's always just been kind of upbeat. And here she is, 93 years old, still kicking ass. Like, must be doing something right.
Are either of them overweight at all? Like,
the bubbly grandma, the happy, positive one, is a little bit overweight, but not like a lot. Okay. And the doctors, we've kind of asked the doctors, like, hey, what do you think? And he's like, well, we have trouble getting 90-year-olds to eat enough usually, so it's probably good that she's still eating ice cream.
Yeah.
We would encourage that at her age. Like if she was 60, we'd say, hey, maybe cut it back a little bit. But
yeah.
as you get older, keeping the weight on becomes a problem as your body starts to wear out. But her saying was always ice cream takes the full away. We'd go out to eat or whatever, and have a big old meal. Like, oh, I'm so full, I can't eat anything. It's like, well, ice cream takes the full away. We need to go to Dairy Queen.
I'm gonna start using it.
Yeah, we'll go to Dairy Queen. She's like, it fills the cracks in. It's like, okay, if you say so.
And both of your grandpas passed away, obviously, right? Or
yeah, they were in their 80s.
Okay.
But yeah, they both passed away already. I mean, men tend to not live as long as women.
Yes, exactly.
But one was 88, and I think the other was 85. So
that's still pretty good.
Yeah, there's definitely some longevity in the family.
Yeah, that's good to know. Like for you, like.
Yeah, one of my great grandfathers lived to 99, which was really interesting to talk to him. I know we're getting a little off topic here, but
it's interesting.
He was 13 when the Titanic sank.
Oh wow!
So like talking to him about like some of those events, like he was talking about how like the newspapers came out and all this stuff. Like, wow, you're old, man. Like that's crazy. So
the longevity is very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world. Growing up without electricity and all this stuff, like it's just wild to think about.
And that's
I hear about it in the newspaper.
Yeah, you're 13. You remember that?
Yeah, it was an extra, in the city. Extra. Like, read all about it. That's how they found out. They got the extra. Everyone was talking about it. They had to go buy the newspaper to read about it.
Now, the reason why I ask is because, longevity is pretty interesting to me. Like me and Steven, like we both were heavy drinkers. We drank and smoked cigarettes a lot, smoked weed a lot, and we did a little bit of cocaine here and there. So then now we're living healthy lifestyle. As we get into our 40s, we've been trying slowly to get off of it. And now we're just kind of wondering, like, me and him both kind of worried, like, yeah, we're going to live to 90. Like we're trying to live 90, but also not like in a bad, we want our health too and be active. So longevity is interesting.
I think that Outlived book you're reading right now will highlight some really good stuff around that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just to reiterate, we weren't doing cocaine this whole time. We did some of that in our past.
Yeah, no, we just said.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think we all have a few colorful stories. I mean, life, you have to live life, right? Like I've got some stories. I'm not gonna share them right now, but
yeah,
I feel like a lot of Americans live long, boring, uninteresting lives, right? Like we got to have a little something. Like I used to ride a motorcycle. I could have been killed doing that. I mean, if you don't do anything, what life is that? Is that a life even worth living, right? So
yeah,
trying to be healthy where you can, but don't be afraid to jump out of a plane with a parachute once in a while. I mean, don't do it without a parachute, but have some fun too.
Yeah.
Like I said, told Aaron, I was like, I'm glad we got our partying out of our system when we were young, because I know people who didn't get that chance, and now when they're older, they're trying to party and live that hard life. And your body, like we were talking about earlier, your body just cannot handle. 40-year-old Steven cannot handle the things 20-year-old Steven was doing. So I'm glad I did that when I was young.
I was talking to Aaron the other day. One of my friends, his brother's in the hospital right now from alcoholism. His kidneys are failing. He's having all these health issues. Like, dang, man, like you got to take care of yourself.
How old is he, if you don't mind?
His story's kind of sad. He's 28.
Oh, wow.
That's insane.
Sounds like during COVID, he got pretty heavy into it, and he's paying the price now.
Yeah, it seemed like that was common. I feel like during COVID, a lot of people got depressed and started kind of resorting to the chemicals to kind of cope with it.
Yeah, that sounds like what kind of happened here, and it's unfortunate they didn't get to them sooner. So, all we can do is learn from other people's mistakes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I kind of worry a lot, but it's like, that's why I say we did a little bit of cocaine here and there, but we got like not too much, but just doing any amount of it, you're like, well, did that damage my heart? And I start worrying about this. And then some people,
I think the body's super resilient, kind of like working out, right? You can get super sore and beat up after a workout, but your body will recover. You just got to give it the time and the nutrition and the sleep and everything it needs to make that progress. And as long as you're making forward progress, you'll be in a pretty good place in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, the body's an amazing machine, but you got to give it what it needs.
And it's crazy too, because like someone like me and Steven, like we did all this drinking and smoking, and we're like, okay, we don't want to die, so let's change it up. And then some other people might be like, oh, well, we did it all. We're already damaged. So let's just keep doing it. And they end up, so our body might recover, but their body might not, because they're just like, well, I've already did it. I'm going to die anyways early. So might as well just keep doing it or do it more.
Yeah. Crazy. Which, that's like driving your car, a car analogy again. Like, oh, well, it's only smoking a little bit. It still starts. we'll just keep going, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you wouldn't do that to your car, right? I mean, people
Yeah.
do it to their bodies, though. Makes no sense.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure the body gives you these warning signs or these signals from time to time, either through pain or an ache. And I think it's just easy to ignore it. It's almost like the fact too, it's like if you acknowledge it, it's almost like you have to start to deal with that problem. And most people would rather just not think about it and ignore it. And,
That's a good point. No, no, kind of like me with my eyesight. Like when I first found out about it, I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to pretend that's not a thing. Like if I don't admit it, it won't happen, right?
Mhm.
That's a good point. People they try
I
to
do that.
ignore it. By ignoring it, it's not real.
Yeah, it's like a psychological trick we play on ourselves.
And what about your health and situations like do you get scans? Like have you ever been to the doctor, you get blood work, like any like lung scans, see like muscle
You
scans?
know,
Have you done any of that
I
stuff?
want to get something more comprehensive done. I've done all the basic blood work, and all comes back. They're like, "You're healthy as an ox." I'm like, "Well, surely I can be doing a little better, right?"
There's no advice whatsoever.
Right, and there's a lot of stuff they don't really scan for in the basic
Yeah.
screening. So I want to go in to like a longevity specialist or something and like have an actual like detailed thing done. The one thing I do is like a preventative measure is I donate blood every 6 to 7 weeks or whatever, and they will give you a cholesterol number as part of that process. So cholesterol is a problem in your life. Donating blood's a super cheap, well, it's free way to kind of track your cholesterol number. So that's kind of a trick I've learned over the years.
Life
Oh,
hack.
nice. That's a good trick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that cholesterol runs a little high in my family, so I keep an eye on it. So donating blood's kind of the way I do it. You can get more frequent measurements, and it's free.
Nice.
Huh. That's a good idea. I never
Good to
even
know.
checked my cholesterol.
Yeah, just go donate blood. They'll give you all your cholesterol numbers,
I'm pretty sure like I'm always like telling Steven like I
and
think
you're
my
helping
shit's all high.
somebody.
My shit's all high, so I'm just gonna get healthy first and then go check my shit out.
Yeah,
Let me focus on getting my blood pressure down. So when I do go to the doctors, it's good.
Well, that's a good.
that's like that's fine. Yeah, get healthy before you go to the doctor. I mean, that's the way it should be, though. It's like preventative care, right? Like, most people wait till they're broken.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to ask there, Steven?
That I can think of. I think we covered a good amount.
Yeah. So Adam, tell us a little bit to finish here about your blind luck project.
Yeah. So the Blind Lots Project is kind of a project I started. It's a website, and its main goal is to teach people how to make their own luck. So if you have goals in life, but you feel like you have an obstacle, maybe it's health, and you feel like you have bad genetics, or you're overweight, or you're not strong enough, or maybe it's a different obstacle. Maybe it's you're having trouble getting to where you want to be in your career, or you're financially not where you want to be, or relationship you haven't gotten to where you want to be. The idea behind the website is to focus on building a plan and overcoming whatever those perceived obstacles are and getting to where you want to be. It's a very proactive, this is the roadmap to success type of system I've built. And it's very applicable to health. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people. Or if you have a challenge like me, like eyesight or something else, finances and stuff like that, it can be very useful for that too. So that's the whole idea behind it, is to show people through examples. You have the odds stacked against you, and still do just fine. It's kind of like playing poker. You got to play with the hand you're dealt, but you can still play that hand well.
Yeah.
Where do they go to that, and how do they sign up, or what do they sign? Do they sign up, or how do they do that?
So all my content's always free. I'm not selling a course or anything like that. I'm already retired. I don't need your money. I'm just trying to help people.
Nice.
The website is blindluckproject.com. There is a newsletter where I'll just send the weekly articles to your inbox as an easy reminder for you to go read it. But again, everything's free. I'm also on Twitter or X now at blind_luck. And I talk a lot about my bike riding, my weightlifting over there, along with poking fun and stuff like that too. So those are kind of the two places you can primarily find me at.
Yeah, we'll put it all in show notes too. So if you guys want to check it out there, you can just find it there as well. So yeah, but it was great having you on today and talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Happy
thanks
St.
for coming
Patrick's
on.
Day. And Aaron, good, exciting about the book. I need to pick that up. If you guys haven't checked out his book, check it out.
Yeah, thank you. I just got
the book.
my first book out. Yeah, it's on Amazon. Yeah, got my first book out, so that was crazy. I wrote that, but maybe we'll write some better ones later or some more. But yeah, thank you. It was a very interesting, an honor to have you on, and
enjoyable conversation, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Adam.
Yep, take care. Happy.
All right, everybody.
Yeah, Happy's Day.
Yep, take care.
See you on the next episode, and keep living that whole life.